websites should be able to provide those things in a very simplistic way. Once you've got that information, then you can clearly begin to build a relationship with them. Again, you need their permission. You need to know how to market to them in the most appropriate way, and you need to have the evidence from the behavior that they've got on your website to know what to say to them. But once you've got that information, it should be very straightforward to actually begin building a dialogue and a relationship with that individual. Again, going back to the marriage proposal, at this stage, we're not saying marry me. What we're saying is, hey, here's some interesting stuff about me that you might want to know and which might help us build our relationship. I think it's a well-known fact that people don't buy from you first time round. It's very unlikely that somebody will visit your website and immediately sign up to what it is that you're offering. Again, we're not skipping straight forward to the marriage. But you need to have some techniques in place to make sure they come back. And obviously, depending on what your organization does, what product it is that you're offering, the ways of doing that might be very different. In this particular instance, our gentleman that was interested in buying an airship is seeking advice and guidance from that particular company. You've got some mechanisms in place, whether it's live chat or whatever, to actually help steer them and support them on their buying journey. And it means that actually you can then use the information you've got to present that customer with the right product from them. The increased chances of that customer buying as a result of that relationship are significant. Once your customer has bought something from you, you again need to then look at ways that you can increase the value of your relationship with them. So they've just bought the jumbo airship. Perhaps they want a blind spot detector and a parachute. That probably doesn't say a great deal about the reliability of the airship, but there are opportunities to upsell and to cross-sell. How do you do that? Do you do that on the website? Do you do that through email marketing? Do you do that through social media? All of those things are possible if you understand the relationship that you have with that customer. And obviously, the other thing that many websites should be able to offer, some do, some don't, is the ability to build an ongoing relationship, the ability to support your customer and the product that they've purchased, the ability to offer that customer the chance to rate and review the product that they've bought. Lots of people that have bought something that they are very proud about will be more than happy to tell the world via the website that they purchased it from how great the thing was, and therefore also potentially recommend that product to other people. Again, if your website technology doesn't support you in doing that, then actually it's not designed particularly well for doing personalization. So the other thing that we always say is extremely important with regard to personalization is the people that you've got within your team. You need a crack team of people. Not that one necessarily, but a team of people who know what they're doing. Those clients of ours that are doing personalization the best have a team of people that understand the skills that are necessary to make personalization work. It is not straightforward. Think about those of you that have built websites in the past. Think about the length of time that it took you to populate that website with one set of content for every audience that comes to that website. That's how websites used to be built. In order to create a personalized journey, the volume of work involved in actually creating content on an ongoing basis increases. And you need the right people to be able to do that. And we would look at a good mix of skills within our clients' teams as being something similar to this. I'll explain what each of them are for those of you that can't read the words at the back. So, gone are the days really where a website can be populated by a copywriter alone if you want to provide a personalized experience. You do need that copywriter skill still. We would, in this particular diagram, class them as the artist. That's the person that's going to be crafting whatever it is that you're delivering on the site. But you also need two other people or people with two other sets of skills within your team as well, in our experience. You then need the scientist. What's the scientist doing? The scientist is the person that's sitting there and looking at the data that's coming back from the website, looking at the trends, the behaviors of the different people that you've got browsing on your site, And it's that person that's actually doing the data analysis to provide evidence for what's working and what's not working. The third person then is the business representative within the group. We have clients that are running e-commerce websites. This is the e-commerce manager. For those that aren't running e-commerce websites, it might be the head of digital or whoever. But that person's the person that's sitting between the artist and the scientist and actually interpreting what they're seeing and hearing into something that is relevant to the business. They also need to be fairly visionary because they need to understand that this is a dynamic environment in which you're working. Your website is never going to be the same from one day to the next, and if it is, you're not doing personalization quite right. As you can see, the amount of time that is necessary to really churn over the information that you're receiving back from your from your website platform is not insignificant. But if you get it right and you've got people that can understand how best to use the information that you're receiving, then you can do very, very powerful things with that information. You also need a bit of technology on your team as well. You need to know, as I said at the very beginning, that the platform that you're sitting on, it has the right mix. There are a lot of content management platforms out there that you can bolt personalization software onto, but you end up with two platforms that are then working side by side, and you're having to try and make sure that both of them are aligned to the solution that you're delivering. In an ideal world, in our view, what you need is a platform that does all three. It allows you to deliver good content, it allows you to transact, and it allows you to personalize the experience of your customers as they arrive on your site. If you haven't got that, then you can have all the skills in the team that you like, you can have all the time in the world to create personalized content, but you will constantly find it a struggle to keep all of the platforms up to date that you're trying to work with. The last thing I wanted to talk about is a bit of proof, and I'm not plugging at this particular point, but we've done this several times now for clients. The most recent one site we've delivered is for Twinings, the tea company. We've just launched their UK and Ireland website, which looks a bit like that. It's optimized for different devices, and it has a fair amount of personalization built into the background as well. I want to talk to you about the process that we go through to actually get to a point where we feel we can deliver a truly personalized experience for our clients' customers. Not surprisingly, most projects start with a lot of research, a lot of requirements gathering as well, and with Twinings that meant we drunk an awful lot of tea just to make sure we were fully in the mode. We then move forward to look at developing personas. Now, personas, in the true sense from a marketing point of view, tend to be quite data-driven. Again, going back to one of the things I said very early on in the presentation, data is not always the answer. If you go to a persona generation company, normally they'll come back to you with ABC ones, behaviors, likes dogs, those sorts of things. Actually, in the digital world, there's only a limit to what you can do with that information in our experience. What you're looking for is specific behaviors to actually design your personas around. So in the case of Twinings, it was actually about understanding their entire product range and what each of their different customer types was going to buy, or which they were likely to buy if you took them on the right personalized journey. The difference there is that we're not trying to work with the data alone. We're actually trying to predict behaviors that we will see and track. And that then, going back to the mix of the people in the team, the artist, the scientist, and the entrepreneur, means that the scientist can track, once the website is live, whether or not the behaviors that they're seeing in terms of browsing on the website meet the expectations of what we saw before. And I think, I'll stand here in front of you right now and say it's almost impossible, unless you've got previous experience or previous evidence from an old website, to get those personas right on day one. They are an evolving beast that you have to keep up to date on a day-to-day basis. Once you've defined your personas, though, the next step is to actually begin looking at the customer journey. And again, with Twinings, that meant a bit more tea. I've seen this particular diagram about 14 times already over the course of the last couple of days in other people's presentations, so my apologies for using it again. So as a digital marketing agency, as personalization has become more and more part of what we're delivering, we've actually had to modify our working practice to make sure that the customer journeys that we define take into account the personalization requirements. What we used to do was obviously work on a customer journey that was singular. It was linear. Once you had the customer and you understood exactly what product they were looking for, this is where you wanted them to end up, and that's the call to action you wanted them to complete. With personalization, you end up actually getting much more cyclical in terms of what you're trying to achieve with a customer. And what we've done is we've modified our ways of working to include an element where we're actually taking the customer, the client's requirements, the customer needs, plotting out wireframes for pages, the information architecture for the whole solution, the process flow that we want to follow. But then when you get to a point where that feels right, you then have to build in the different personas that you're looking to achieve and work out how, in whichever solution it is that we're delivering the platform, the client's website in, work out what tools and techniques within that platform we're going to employ to build that journey. Because if you don't get that bit right, you end up designing and building a very well-structured, very lovely-looking website that might have a fantastic customer journey, but it doesn't really support personalization particularly well. You have to know exactly what you're looking to personalize and for whom you're looking to personalize it for. And that quite often means that in our discovery and design phases of our projects now, we're going round and round and round the loop. And it requires we've actually taken our agency structure and changed it to accommodate this, because otherwise you end up with everybody a bit confused as to why the technical side of things is having to change to support something that's going on over here, or why the design needs to change in order to support something that one or two personas need but others don't. It's quite an involved process, but if you get it right, it can be quite a potent mix. With Twinings, in particular, what we've done is built a journey which is going to, over a period of time, and they only launched the site at the end of September, over a period of time, going to learn about the customer. And in the same way as our internal processes to define a solution have changed, so does our thinking about what a customer is to us. Going back to the example from the Kennel Club, nothing stays the same. It always changes. You need to remember that you can't just pigeonhole somebody on the basis of something that they did 6 months ago. So the way that works with the Twinings website is that you get the customer browsing content or products, adding items to their basket, or making a purchase. That then means that certain triggers are met, and they get assigned to a particular group or persona inside the Kentico platform. Then they receive or see personalized content on the website in the way that we've talked about. How that's delivered depends slightly on their how they've indicated they want to be marketed to, and it means that we can then present them with not only customized brand content, things that add value to their experience with Twinings. It also means that we can send customized product recommendations and promotions out to the customer. Based on how they then respond to those messages, we then start the cycle again, because they're then browsing other things and we're seeing different behaviors. And so again, that's where they then begin, we then begin to learn more about them. It might well be that as a result of some of the changes in behavior we see from some of the marketing that we send them, that they then get assigned to a completely different persona, and a different set of activities then ensues afterwards. The key thing is that you have to be quite flexible with the way that these things are defined. And it's also important to remember about the capacity of your team. So Twinings right now, for example, busiest time of the year for them, not surprisingly, most retailers would say the same right now. And so what they're doing at the current time is gathering data, because they knew that in order to take on both a really big personalization piece and all of their Christmas traffic right now, you have to remember that they're under pressure, as most retail teams are right now. So I think the key thing here with regard to the platform that you're working with is just to understand whether or not it's a platform that's going to cost you money if you're not using it. There are lots of products out there on the market that will charge you a monthly fee, irrespective of whether you use the features that you've got to push your marketing automation and personalization capabilities. If you know that there are periods of the year when you're not going to be able to use it, that should be a consideration for you. We've seen a lot of customers who've moved away from some of the bigger platforms, more well-known platforms, simply because their team can only use its full potential at certain times of the year. That's all I've got for the time being. I hope it was useful. Thank you very much.